A black man named Jamal West was wrongfully arrested by two racist police officers, Andrew and Silas. But when Jamal's true identity came to light, the entire police station was left speechless. What happened? Who is Jamal West, really? And what made the station realize they were facing more than just a legal case but a massive reckoning? Let's dive into the story. But before we do, let me know where you're tuning in from by dropping a comment below. And if you enjoy stories like this, be sure to subscribe. It was just another day in the city. The sun was creeping up over the tall buildings, casting long shadows over the busy streets. The usual sounds of the city, car horns, distant sirens, chatter, filled the air. People were getting their morning routines underway, heading to work, grabbing coffee, or walking their dogs. The neighborhood buzzed with energy, full of life. Jamal West strolled through the streets calmly, his relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to the fast-moving crowd around him. In his mid-30s, Jamal was sharply dressed in a tailored suit. The polished leather of his shoes clicked against the pavement as he walked, a subtle but commanding presence. He wasn't seeking attention, but the quiet confidence he carried made people take notice. He had just finished breakfast at his favorite diner, a place he loved to visit when he had time. The staff knew him well and always got his order just right: scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, and a side of fruit. After settling his bill, Jamal made his way to his car, a sleek black sedan parked along the street. Just then, his phone reminding him to stay calm, to be smart. "All right," Jamal said slowly, raising his hand slightly to show he wasn't a threat. "I'll step back." He took a step away from the car, but as he did, Andrew moved in closer, his hand now gripping the handle of his baton. Jamal's heart raced, but he kept his face neutral, refusing to show fear. Without warning, Andrew grabbed Jamal's arm and twisted it behind his back. The sudden move shocked Jamal, and he winced in pain. Before he could even process what was happening, Silas was on him too, forcing him to the ground. "Hey, what are you doing?" Jamal protested, trying to keep his voice steady despite the sharp pain in his shoulder. He wasn't resisting, but the officers were treating him like he was. "You're under arrest for resisting arrest," Andrew said coldly as he tightened the cuffs around Jamal's wrists. Jamal's mind raced. Resisting arrest? For what? He didn't resist. He did exactly what they asked. Jamal tried to reason with himself, tried to stay calm, but deep down, he knew it didn't matter. They had made up their minds the moment they laid eyes on him. By now, the scene had drawn the attention of onlookers. Across the street, an elderly woman, Mrs. Agnes Carter, watched in disbelief from her balcony. She recognized Jamal. Car, Jamal's mind was racing. What would happen next? How could he fight this? He wasn't going to let this slide. He would make sure justice was served. When they arrived at the station, the atmosphere was a stark contrast to the outside world. The place was cold, with its gray walls and harsh fluorescent lights. Officers moved quickly, some chatting in low voices, others focused on their duties. There was a tension in the air that made people glance over their shoulders and speak in whispers. Jamal, still cuffed, was escorted through the station's front doors. Andrew and Silas flanked him, their faces unreadable. As they walked through the booking area, a few officers glanced up, taking in Jamal's appearance. He was not the usual type they brought in, a well-dressed black man with an air of calm confidence. "Over here," Andrew barked, steering Jamal toward a desk where a tired-looking officer sat behind a computer. The officer barely looked up. "Name?" he asked, fingers poised to type. "Jamal West," Andrew replied before Jamal could answer. The officer typed the name into the system, frowning slightly as he scanned the screen. He didn't say anything, just motioned for Andrew to move Jamal to the fingerprinting station. "Let's get this over with," Andrew muttered as he shoved Jamal forward. Jamal didn't resist. He knew better than to give them any reason to escalate the situation. As they took his fingerprints, Jamal remained quiet. His mind was racing. How had it come to this? He'd done nothing wrong, yet here he was, treated like a criminal, but he kept his composure. Thompson didn't immediately respond. She studied Andrew's face, searching for any cracks in his story. She had dealt with officers like him before, ones who thought they could bend the rules as long as it fit their narrative. But she was different. She played by the book and expected her team to do the same. "Take me to him," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Andrew hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Right this way, ma'am." As they walked towards the holding cells, Thompson couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than Andrew was letting on. Something just didn't sit right. When they reached Jamal's cell, she paused, her eyes locking onto the man inside. He was sitting on the bench, his hands folded in his lap, looking completely at ease despite the situation. There was something about his demeanor that made her pause. This wasn't the behavior of someone who had just resisted arrest. "This is him?" she asked Andrew, her tone skeptical. "Yes, ma'am," Andrew confirmed. "Like I said, he resisted, so we had no choice but to bring him in." Thompson said nothing. Instead, she opened the cell door and stepped inside. Jamal looked up, meeting her gaze with steady, calm eyes. He wasn't intimidated, but he wasn't defiant either. Office was a quiet confidence. This wasn't just someone trying to talk their way out of trouble. He spoke with the precision of someone accustomed to being in high-pressure situations. She turned to Andrew Riley, who stood nearby, arms crossed but clearly uncomfortable. "Officer Riley," Thompson said, her tone now more pointed. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Andrew stood a few feet behind Thompson, her expression carefully composed. "Is that true, Riley?" Thompson's voice cut through the air, sharp and demanding. "Did Mr. West follow your instructions?" Andrew shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, ma'am," he stammered. "He questioned us and things got a bit tense. We thought he might be hiding something." Thompson's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly led you to that conclusion?" Andrew hesitated, searching for a credible answer. "It was just a gut feeling, ma'am." "A gut feeling?" Thompson echoed incredulously. "Is that really the basis for your arrest?" Before Andrew could respond, the sound of the holding area door swung open, drawing everyone's attention. Officer Stevens rushed in, looking slightly winded, and paused as he recognized the charged atmosphere. "Lieutenant, I need to talk to you," he said, glancing nervously between Jamal and Riley. Thompson shot Andrew one last piercing look before stepping out of the cell, shutting the door behind her. "What is it, Stevens?" Lowering his voice, Stevens leaned in. "Ma'am, I've been doing some digging. Jamal West isn't just and everything could erupt. But doing nothing wasn't an option either. This was going to spiral out of control whether she acted or not. "We need to release him," Thompson said suddenly, her voice grim. "It's the only way to defuse this." Stevens nodded, though his concern was evident. "But how are we going to explain it to the media? They're not just going to accept that we let him go without a reason." Thompson thought for a moment before responding. "We'll frame it as a misunderstanding. After reviewing the evidence, we found no cause for the arrest and decided to release him. We'll stress that we take these matters seriously and are committed to justice and fairness." It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the best option she had. If they were lucky, it would be enough to calm the crowd and prevent the situation from getting worse. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had to think about the bigger picture: the department, her career, and the potential fallout if this wasn't handled right. Determined, Thompson turned from the window and made her way to the holding area. As she walked, she passed Andrew and Silas, who were typing furiously, clearly rattled by the day's events. She paused briefly, her eyes cold as she addressed them. "When this is over, we're going to have a serious talk about what went wrong here," she said, her tone cutting. "And trust me, it won't be pleasant." Andrew swallowed hard, giving a stiff the beginning. Jamal West wouldn't let this go quietly, and the ripple effects of today's events were sure to be felt far beyond this moment. The immediate crisis had been avoided, at least for the time being. The crowd outside had started to break up, and the reporters were packing their gear, preparing to leave. The overwhelming tension that had gripped the station all day was finally starting to lift. Lieutenant Kate Thompson, though, knew this was far from over. There was still a long road ahead to repair the damage caused by the day's events, but she was ready to take it head-on. As Jamal West walked away from the station, he understood that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. He had been wronged, but he also knew how to turn that wrong into a fight for something greater. The truth would eventually come to light, and when it did, it would shake the foundations of both the police department and the town itself. Inside the station, the tension hadn't fully evaporated. Since Jamal had walked out the front doors, Thompson couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Sitting in her office reviewing reports from Officers Andrew and Silas, she kept finding herself distracted by thoughts of Jamal. There was something about the way he had conducted himself. So calm, so measured, almost as if he had expected the whole situation, that nagged at her. She trusted her instincts, and right now, they were telling her that there was more to this story. The atmosphere outside her office reflected the gravity of the day. Officers moved around the station, avoiding eye contact, still cautious after the high tension finally dawning on them. "You've put all of us at risk," she continued, her voice colder. "Not just the department, but the entire city. If this investigation blows wide open, we're all going down with it." Andrew finally found his voice. "Lieutenant, we didn't know. We were just following protocol." "Protocol?" Thompson's tone sharpened, her frustration peaking. "What protocol?" "You arrested a man without cause, treated him like a criminal, and now we're tangled in a federal investigation that could tear apart everything we've built. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about the entire department." Silas looked like he might be sick. "What do we do now, Lieutenant?" Before Thompson could respond, the door burst open, and Chief Frank Daniels stormed in, his face flushed with anger. "Lieutenant Thompson," he barked, his voice booming. "What in the hell is going on here?" Thompson stood up straighter, meeting his furious gaze. "Chief, we have a serious problem. Jamal West is—" "I know who Jamal West is," Daniels cut her off, his voice dripping with frustration. "And I know exactly what kind of mess you've gotten us into." Thompson blinked in surprise. "Chief, Save it," Daniels snapped, silencing her again. "Do you have any idea what kind of position you've put this department in? We've got a civil rights lawyer working under..." "Chief Daniels, Lieutenant Thompson?" Agent Williams greeted them curtly, his eyes scanning the room. "We need to talk." Daniels squared his shoulders, attempting to maintain control. "Agent Williams, we can explain." Williams held up a hand, silencing him. "There's no need for explanations, Chief. I'm fully aware of the situation, and let me be clear. This is a serious matter." Thompson felt her pulse quicken. The tension in Williams's voice left no doubt that whatever was coming next would be significant. "Jamal West is a key asset in a federal investigation," Williams continued, his tone steady. "An investigation that has been months in the making. His arrest was a mistake, one that could have major repercussions if not dealt with properly." Daniels shifted uncomfortably. "We understand, Agent Williams. We're ready to cooperate fully." "Good," Williams replied, his voice clipped, "because your cooperation is the only thing that will keep this situation from escalating further." Thompson's mind raced as she tried to comprehend the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't just about West anymore. The entire department, and possibly the entire city, was on the line. Williams's gaze hardened as he addressed the room. "You will issue a formal apology to Jamal West on behalf of the department. Any resistance will result in immediate action." Daniel's face flushed with anger, but he gave a stiff nod. "Understood." Williams turned to Thompson, his expression unreadable. "Lieutenant, I expect you to oversee this personally. Make sure there are no further incidents."
It's about all of us. It's about every person who has been wronged by a system that was supposed to protect them. It's about ensuring that no one else has to endure what I did. And it's about making sure that justice isn't just a word, but a reality. The crowd roared in approval, and Jamal paused, letting the energy of the moment wash over him. He saw hope in their eyes, a powerful feeling that stirred something deep within him. Change doesn't happen overnight, he added, his tone measured, but it can happen if we work for it. It will take time and all of us working together, but I believe we can make it happen. We can build a better future, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. As the applause swelled, Jamal stepped away from the podium, his message delivered. The surge of support filled him with determination. He knew this was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey, but he was ready for it, ready to lead the fight for justice, to hold the powerful accountable, and to ensure the voices of the marginalized were heard. As Jamal moved through the crowd, embracing friends and supporters, Lieutenant Thompson stood on the steps of the station, watching. A mix of relief and resolve washed over her, relief that the immediate crisis had been averted, and resolve to see the necessary changes through. She knew the department had a long road ahead, but with people like Jamal West leading the charge, she table surrounded by community leaders, activists, legal experts, and concerned citizens. They were deep in discussion, hammering out the details of the Community Justice Initiative, debating strategies and priorities. We need to focus on education, argued Maria Hernandez, a local school teacher. If we want lasting change, we have to start with the youth. I agree, said Dr. James Carter, a sociology professor. But we can't ignore the immediate needs of those suffering under an unjust system right now. As the conversation continued, it became clear that change was on the horizon. Slow, difficult, but inevitable. We need a comprehensive strategy. Jamal took in every viewpoint, making notes and posing questions along the way. The dedication and knowledge on display impressed him, and it was exactly what he'd envisioned, a unified effort tapping into the strengths of the entire community. As the meeting continued, solid plans began to take shape. They decided to establish a legal aid clinic to offer free legal services for those who couldn't afford representation. A community oversight board would also be created to work hand in hand with the police department's internal affairs division. In addition, educational programs for schools and community centers would focus on civil rights, civic involvement, and conflict resolution. By the time the meeting ended, everyone felt energized and clear about the next steps. They knew it was a long road ahead, but the first steps had been taken together. As months passed, the city saw small but meaningful changes begin to take root. With Lieutenant Thompson overseeing the police department and the new oversight board in place, fresh training programs of us coming together to create the changes we want to see. As they continued discussing the curriculum rollout, Jamal felt a deep sense of accomplishment. This was what real progress looked like. Not just protests or speeches, but actions that would shape the future of their community. Later that night, as Jamal finally left the office and stepped into the quiet streets, he paused for a moment, reflecting. The city was peaceful, settling into its evening rhythm. He thought about how much had changed in the past 6 months, and how much work still lay ahead. Looking up at the stars, twinkling brightly in the clear night sky, Jamal felt a wave of calm. They were on the right path. He knew the journey wouldn't be easy, and there would be obstacles. But as long as they continued to move forward together, they could build the kind of community they all envisioned. A place where justice wasn't just a word, but a reality for everyone. With renewed resolve, Jamal began walking home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new chances to make a difference, and he was ready to face them, one step at a time.